Hello Kai 2023. I'm John Dunham with the Niantic RIT GeoGames Lab, and today I'll be running you through some research we've done on Pokémon GO and the impacts of COVID-19. Now, Pokémon GO is a location-based game released by Niantic in 2016. In Pokémon GO, the player controls an avatar through motion in the real world, which maps to a reality-enhanced digital space with ludic features. Pokémon GO also uses real landmarks such as restaurants, banks, monuments, and parks to represent locations in the digital world. These points of interest are recontextualized to be locations for play that the player must navigate towards in order to interact with the location-based game. In short, movement in the real world is necessary to play the game. However, in 2020, COVID-19 forced Pokémon GO players to stay home. Given the centrality of movement to the play of Pokémon GO, one would expect the game to wane in popularity, with players switching to more static gaming experiences. However, this was not the case. In fact, 2020 ended up being the best year on record for both active users and income. Pokémon GO was doing excellently, continuing the positive trend in both active users and income that Niantic had seen in previous years. This continued increase is, in part, the result of Niantic changing how the game was played throughout 2020. These changes, in large, reduced the distances that players needed to travel in order to play the game. Additionally, it opened up avenues for social interaction with players not in co-located spaces. As prior research into Pokémon GO was conducted when in-person contexts were the only ones available, we identified a potential gap for exploration. Historically, Pokémon GO has been found to encourage mobility, exercise, and had a generally positive impact on player well-being. Additionally, in-person socialization represented a central component of gameplay, with players frequently engaging in social interactions and gatherings to play the game. COVID-19 restricted the mechanisms that enabled many of these prior findings. The players could no longer freely meet in person, and leaving the house required varying levels of preparation that discouraged mobility. We sought to take advantage of these environmental shifts to better understand some of the intrinsic qualities of location-based games. If the player can't move, does the game still encourage them to move? To what extent? Places once open to the public became closed and even dangerous. How do location-based games mediate player relationships with these spaces? And of course, is socialization a byproduct of location-based games, or does the desire to socialize drive the players to these games to play them? Using Pokémon GO as a probe, we conducted a series of 30 semi-structured interviews. Recruitment occurred on Twitter, Facebook, a local Discord server, and r/Pokemon Go. Participants were offered an in-game reward valued at $10 upon completion of their 30-minute interview. These interviews were conducted during the month of December 2020. Participants were asked how long they had been playing the game, how they interacted with points of interest, and the ways they had been playing the game during the pandemic. Of the study participants, 14 identified themselves as female, 15 as male, and 1 supplied no answer. 28 participants identified themselves as gamers. After completion of the interview, coding generated sub-themes that were deductively assigned to the themes identified when designing the interview instrument. Which brings me to our results. Pokémon GO moved from a largely communal, in-person game to one that was characterized by individualistic play and online interactions with other players. One consequence of this shift was an increase in the complexity of coordinating multiplayer events within the game. Where participants could once call out to other players and plan through in-person interaction, they now needed to conduct context switching between the game application and their communication app of choice. Participants largely didn't find the new pandemic organization style to match up with the pre-pandemic one. Similarly, the once highly social in-person events known as Community Day, where players would engage in similar in-game objectives, had shifted to almost entirely solo experiences. As a result, participants felt as though the sense of community had been reduced significantly in the game. Interestingly, participants who participated in family play largely felt no changes to their group play, with most participants in this demographic indicating that they had similar, if not better, experiences with the game. These factors tend to imply that socialization is a central and driving factor in playing location-based games. While Pokémon GO has historically had positive impacts on the well-being of players, the pandemic saw a rise in the players using the game as a coping mechanism. 7 participants joined or rejoined the game in an effort to directly escape from the reality of the pandemic, acting as an outlet for boredom and exercise. For players who've been continuously playing the game, Pokémon GO acted as a point of stability, a constant in the sea of uncertainty. While the use of the game was wholly individualistic, common themes in how participants used the game also included exercise, exposure to green spaces, socialization, and mental stimulation. Pokemon Go gave our participants whose worlds had shrunk a chance to recontextualize the world as they needed it in the moment. This recontextualization naturally redefined how players interacted with the places in which they gamed. However, the larger pandemic redefined participant relationships with space. Commutes disappeared for many participants, and they couldn't go to every place they could prior to the onset of the pandemic. Those who walked on college campuses could no longer visit for play. Commute players who played en route lost crucial playtime. Participants responded by changing their routes to COVID-safe ones. Those who walked now drove, and visits to the grocery store now became chances to restock both the pantry and in-game supplies. Play became much more intentional and thought out for our players as they attempted to maximize their fun in relation to the new rules of the spaces they inhabited. Ultimately, our participants just wanted to keep playing the game. COVID had forced the game from being an in-person social experience to a digital one. Where community days were once a social outing, they were now either alone time at home or a private walk around the neighborhood. Digital communication tools shifted from being accessories to socialization to the center of it. The relationship between player and place shifted greatly too. Prior to the pandemic, the game de-emphasized static play. However, to deal with the realities of a pandemic world, the home became a point of interest in the game out of necessity. While our participants didn't find these shifts to be entirely equivocal, the game acted as an important lifeline. Whether that lifeline tied players to friends, family members, or more peaceful days, Pokemon Go is able to act as a constant to help weather the stressors of the world. As the world adapts to the realities of COVID-19, location-based games show promise as a mechanism to tie players to their communities, both local and global.